Just want to thank you again, Charles, for agreeing to be a part of this interview. As I said, this is not just a discussion between your company and myself, but it also will be reaching those across the region in Barbados, Trinidad, and those who just generally interested and want to find out more about the developing cannabis industry. So I will jump straight into it actually. I would have met you or got a glimpse of your company from being a part of the BMCLA webinar, which was an investment webinar for the medical cannabis industry in Barbados on November the 2nd. I must say it was a wealth of information. I'm great and excited to see what will be happening in the industry in Barbados specifically and what will it will bring for the rest of the region as well. So just by starting off, I just want to get a overview and understanding of your company. I know that you all deal with security consultancy foremost, but I know that you would have made mention of filling the gap in other spaces. So that's what is the OC company?
OSSI.
OSSI.
OSSI would stand for Olympian Security Solutions Incorporated. It basically is a development out of a pre-existing consultancy, CPNet, which was in existence for years, doing various types of projects for international regional organizations, for private sector, on a number of business matters. So when we look at the range of experience of the persons involved in this group, we've got one director who's a civil engineer, another director who's an industrial relations consultant. I myself have a background in IT and security as well as video work. So we decided that we would pool our resources and our knowledge to address various business challenges in view of finding a solution. Now, how OSSI started was way back in probably November last year. We were approached by a foreign entity to do a feasibility study for then establishing a security presence in Barbados. Now that entailed a significant amount of work, and we had everything in place. Basically, worked out the legal framework, worked out the registration framework, did the marketing analysis, and various other activities that was sort of determining our product mix and stuff like that. They were a conventional security company looking to provide traditional services. Then along came COVID, and we went through our lockdown, and obviously the market became very difficult for entry at that time. Businesses closing, the hotel sector almost completely closed down. There was not a lot of activity going on. Plus, we were actually on 100% lockdown. So the decision was made that they wouldn't venture into a new market under these conditions at the time. But we'd already done so much work. We just looked at one another and said, why don't we just do that ourselves? And the same hesitance that the client had, I personally had. I said, well, why do you want to get into something like that now where there's no market? You know, one of the colleagues said, well, why don't we look at the medical cannabis industry? Because that's something that's now coming online. And it sort of flew by me. But then I thought about it and I said, look, we've been doing agricultural anti-predator larceny patrols using UAVs and aerial assets for some time. And we've also done a lot of investigation into wide area protections for crops and stuff and cattle. So the technology is just about the same. So let me just do some research and see, if it is a viable venture. So that's what started all the research, and then got involved with some individuals at the BMCLA who were very, very helpful, and started attending some of these forums and just got a feel for what was going on. picked up the necessary background product knowledge so that we understood the culture of the industry and therefore could um, easily determine the risks, the mentalities of the persons involved, um, and design countermeasures around that knowledge. Now you may say that's, how's that security? We found that to be invaluable in the agricultural sector because farmers have a particular mentality which you have to address. I assume that practitioners in this industry would be of similar cloth. So that's why we invested the time in knowing the product so we could talk to them on their terms, so we could understand some of their concerns, and bring in some of our other skills to help um, resolve some of their challenges. So we decided to go into this thing, and of course, at first it was a 100% security focus, which is physical security, protection of physical assets. Um, and as such, then we had to develop the international contacts to get the solutions because this product is a high value product. And it is also a product that is very, there are lots of rules and regulations around this product in terms of diversion, in terms of infiltration of legal product into the illicit sector. So that security has to be of a very, very high grade. And having a fairly sound knowledge of the security industry and the electronics in existence, we decided to go to a level that we knew would be required for this industry, which is military grade. So we developed the contacts with companies that provide military grade solutions for high security areas. And they were quite excited about the project. Some of them already were doing cannabis, and they were very excited about getting into the region. So we formulated some loose collaborations, and then they morphed into strategic alliances. So we developed the first step was to develop the foundation of the operations, which was the strategic alliances with suppliers who would provide the necessary equipment to prevent any disruption of activities or diversion of product. Having done that, having listened to quite a few of the seminars, we realized that, as is required, there was quite a bit of complaints. There were quite a few complaints issues in terms of the rules and regulations. The Medical Cannabis Act 2019 and the subsequent regulation 2020 very clearly and comprehensively outline everything. The BMCLA has done a tremendous amount of work in setting out the regulatory framework.
Yeah, I must commend them on that as well. It was pretty comprehensive when I saw it.
Very comprehensive, anything to do with the regulatory framework and, onboarding. They are very helpful staff there, and they're the source. And I always refer my clients, always look at their site for the latest information, the current information, etc. Anyhow, in speaking to them, I realized, a lot of people, I just recently spoke to another client on another project, and he basically said, I'm coming to you because the other agency wants me to learn to do this stuff for myself and blah, blah. I'm not interested in that. I just want to get my stuff online, and, you do the marketing, you do the video creation, everything. And a lot of business people are like that. They concentrate on their core activity. They don't have the time or the interest in getting tied up with all the supporting aspects of
the technicalities,
which are very important. So we initially got involved with the master security plan, the security plan, the site plan, and various SOPs as they relate to security as a requirement and a very strong requirement of the application document that has to go to the BMCLA. Some clients then asked for some additional information. Clients that were overseas did not really have um, the flexibility to contact persons here. They would have to contact a lawyer and then contact maybe some sort of entrepreneur to get things done. And then usually the focal point is a lawyer, because the lawyer will run around and get the licensing information, DVD incorporation, um, you know, and there's some peculiarities about the incorporation, which requires 30% ownership by a Barbadian or CARICOM entity registered to live here, operate here. So the lawyer may not necessarily have time to do all that stuff. So we saw the need for plugging a hole, plugging a logistical hole, right, in the whole operations framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the obvious place to start would be with the obvious things that need to be in place for an operation: fencing, secure power, clearing of land, and preparation of foundations and stuff for facilities. So that's where we went at first. And as I said, one of our directors is a civil engineer, so that was right down his lane. And he said, well, fine, we can do all the additional things like making sure this town and country planning permission for a fence over, 8 feet or whatever, and get all these little busy things out the way in a one-stop, all-inclusive solution. So that's how it started out. That's how it ended up with us getting into this comprehensive service solution for the industry, right? It may seem like a lot, but when you look at the way how it is structured, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that we are trying to be a jack of all trades. We have specialists in all the trades that we think are critical for the industry. And those specialists have strategic alliances with us to do what they do. We do what we do, but we provide a package with one point of contact and with the redundancies in place that we can check and we have fault tolerance. We will, that solution will always work because there are enough layers in our structure to cover anything that pops up, right? So the whole thing is to stop the investor, especially the overseas investor, from hitting some of the potholes, which may not be initially obvious, so that the onboarding process in Barbados is a pleasant one, a simple one, and an efficient one.
Okay, nice. Well, you would have made a very great example of referring to the company now, from moving just into security, but into a one-stop shop, as you would have said. But when you say a one-stop shop, can you just go into some of the other sectors that you all may touch? So I know that you all may help with administrative tasks, you all may assist with financial or legal matters, but what exactly is within the package apart from security services?
Well, first of all, the legal matters, that would be that is a specialized area. Well, we don't really deal with legal matters. We would deal with registration, assisting in registration matters to make sure that the registration is compliant. Administrative matters, we can assist. We have persons on board that can do virtual administrative services. But I believe in most cases, these practitioners will have their own onboard administration. But where we see it important to plug some additional holes would be things like there are some challenges. There are some challenges in the financial sector. There are some challenges in the insurance sector. So those challenges being caused because of what we would call international correspondent bank requirements, which since cannabis is not federally legalized in the United States, and most of the banking institutions in the region do correspondent banking through federal banks in the US. They are not able to accept funds knowing to be the proceeds from the medical cannabis industry. So that's an immediate problem. What are you going to do with your cash, right? How you going to pay for goods and services offshore? I mean, it's not a problem here. You can store your cash on board, and you can do the various things that you need to do locally. But at some point in time, you're gonna have to get equipment from overseas, right?
Correct.
And that means then you got to go through some sort of international transfer system, which is going to touch on this restriction. Likewise, the insurance industry, and these are large firms that we personally sat and talked with their decision makers, and we have a definite situation where we know firsthand that it's not gonna work very easily, at least for the next 2 or 3 years until the US regularizes things. Insurance for things like if you were going as far as things like crop failure, they don't have any way of sort of evaluating that outside of the zone of the results of a natural disaster. I refer to things like the ashfall, the recent ashfall, maybe a hurricane causing failure of a crop. Could they get insurance for that? Sort of like event insurance. And they said, no, in any event, we can't take the premiums, right? So those are two problems which we are currently working on to see if we can facilitate mechanisms or suggest mechanisms whereby the funds can be legally kept safely, and where operations cannot be seriously affected by this restriction which is currently in place. So that's one area which, as I said, is something that's not up front there all the time, but you gotta think about these things. We've thought about other situations like providing specialized agricultural equipment or having a strategic partner that provides specialized equipment. And just only yesterday we spoke with an organization in Trinidad that will provide the specialized equipment should there be a need locally. So that's another area that we came into that we didn't originally envisage getting involved with. Now, some of the other things that we do are on the market side, because as I said, the BMCLA is a regulatory organization. So their mandate is not to go there and find persons for you to sell your product to or whatever. So there's an area there where we can assist as a private sector organization. We can go there through our connections with the various other verticals that we deal with. We can create the connections whereby we can have a sort of a platform. It's not under development. We are calling it MVP, which is normally most valuable player, but this is what we are calling a multi-vector platform. What a multi-vector is, the various paths to success. Basically, you have pharmacies and retailers of medical products in the UK, in Canada, and in the US that want basically secure product. And you have practitioners here, farmers, who would be a lot more comfortable knowing that if they plant an acre of cannabis, that they can concentrate on growing that cannabis during the 4 to 6 months and not have to worry about running around trying to market and get somebody to buy their stuff. So this platform is to get contact with people who want to be supplied, and to have a list of people who want to supply, and to do that mesh so that there is like a growing contract. The person at the requirement end says, I want 400 kilos of a particular product at the end of your harvest, at the end of your planting period. So you know, from the time you put a seed in the ground, you know there's a sale for that, right? So
It's guaranteed.
you can grow with more confidence. Also, there's a need, as I mentioned earlier, there's a need for a 30% operational partnership. You know, so this is not something on paper. I think the BMCLA was quite clear about that in the last forum that you attended. This is somebody with a vote, somebody who has input into the business, an operational partner at 30%. 70% investment coming from overseas may not necessarily be familiar. Right now, there's no information knocking around to say Pharma A, Pharma B, and Pharma C, or Practitioner A, Practitioner B, Practitioner C, is looking to get into this industry and is willing to partner with, you know, whatever organization from overseas to satisfy this legal requirement so that we can establish a company in Barbados and move forward. So we want part of this multi-vector platform is to have those two sides, the supplier side and the requirement side, so that we can mesh again, handshake, and it's a service that we will provide for clients, you know. So the whole passion about this whole thing is that you can actually contribute something to the growth of the industry, you know, and provide a lot of value added services which may not necessarily be obvious up front, and which there doesn't seem to be a whole bunch of players in that particular space within an already narrow niche, right? So it's a very, very narrow space that we're talking about. So we have stepped up to the plate and said, yeah, this is what we want to do, and this is what will keep it exciting for us, you know, because we're dealing with all the various business disciplines that we've all been trained in, and we're following up with our background passion on security and the provision of physical security equipment. So to us, it's a win-win game. And we really enjoy doing this and making the contacts and just trying not to establish this framework in place so that people definitely have some place to come to achieve certain goals, certain operational goals in their business ventures.
Great. And I heard you would have made mention specifically to foreign investments such as from the USA, Canada, etc. But have any contacts or anybody reached out to you from within the region? Because I know that St. Vincent would have set up their own medical cannabis industry, as well as Jamaica, and we have other countries as well that is looking to enter. So has any of those entities reached out to you, or any of the services such as the MVP package that you would have entailed could be used for them as well?
Oh yeah, but you see, the MVP package is something that was just conceptualized maybe a week or so ago, because this thing changes. You know, we just get these ideas because we're always thinking, you know, and we are, the beauty of an organization like that, like this, is that it is like instant reaction to market. You know, we don't have the inertia of bigger organizations that gotta go through boards and international lines of command to decide to react to a spot in the market. I can tell you that because I came out of one of those organizations. I know how difficult it is to respond to instant market demand. But that came up based on some discussions between the director and some clients and stuff, or prospective clients that came up. And a lot of things come up as we discuss things among ourselves, etc. We decided, you know, to even get into the transportation of materials, whether they be finished materials, vegetation, biological materials, vegetation state, stuff that is going to be destroyed, although most likely the destruction will be done in situ. But basically, we will transport product, and we will transport cash if need be, you know, because there may be a facility where you have to store these sums of cash because it's going to be outside the banking system, you're going to have large sums of cash on premises. So that means that our security measures are going to have to be extremely hard. I mean, bank level type security for these places, so that their stuff is safe, the access controls and their management of entry into various places is going to be like very, very, very critical. So there's a lot of scope. Right now, I think from the BMCLA meeting, they should be able to send the applicants with 10 pending. Our own internal research figures that the industry would possibly top out at about 200 players. As it stands right now, we are talking, in terms of numbers, we're talking to 30% of the people that are interested in onboarding. So it's a very comfortable position. We deliver specialized services. So we're not geared, structured, or interested in delivering this wide scale mass.
A one size fit all.
Yeah.
Sort of an
option. We're doing specialized things in a specialized area for people who want the service. So talking to 30% is quick enough for us that way. Because we could never really efficiently handle more than that based on our size. We don't plan. We plan to stay at this scale. So this is at the base a risk-based consultancy that will provide all the necessities to satisfy the exposures to close those exposure gaps. So for us, we're in the place that we want to be, and we just basically waiting now for people to actually get the licenses and mobilize things like getting the properties ready or the locations ready, this kind of thing. Before all that, right now we're just dealing with building the infrastructure, developing the contacts that we can mesh people together when they're ready to mesh, develop all the applications and software needed. For instance, we developed a specialized application for the movement of product island-wide, which is a cloud-based app, and the person requiring the service will just go online with their service number, require their pickup. It's how should I put it? It's charged and everything. They just report the weight, the location. The software works, so everything gives them a charge, gives them a ticket, gives them an appointment time. They book the appointment time. It's geotagged with a GPS location, which is tied into the truck. Truck goes exactly to the dot, to the flag, picks up the stuff. They can see where it goes. The BMCLA has something called a track and trace software, which accounts for the movement, the batch, the certificate of analysis, all the regulatory side of it. So I mean, everything is transparent, and all the key stakeholders under the compliance regulations are able to see what is going on with that movement. What batch is being moved, where they're located, everything. So although nothing operational is going on, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background to get ducks in a row.
Okay, great. One thing I want to actually touch on is the illicit side of things. I know that the illicit market, not just with in the region, but also in USA, Canada, and other places, it has proven a bit difficult in terms of competition. So how do you see the illicit market interfering with the legal side of things in terms of the security logistics that you would be handling for farms or retail businesses?
Well, our only concern with the illicit market is that nothing from the legalized medical cannabis side is diverted to that market. All right, because there are two different markets. The illicit market is a recreational market. The medical cannabis market is a pharmaceutical market. That that is a medication to address certain ailments, and there are a wide range of ailments that can be addressed by cannabinoids, CBT and THC. The alternative, obviously, in some cases, is opioids, which we all know we would like to keep away from unless absolutely necessary. So the cannabinoid is a viable and safe solution. But the specifications of the strain, the specifications of the growing process, the pest control processes, everything concerned with the growing of medical cannabis is very regulated. The soil must have a certain pH value. Irrigation must be of a certain type, and you gotta mix your nutrients into the water and this kind of stuff. So what is being done on the pharmaceutical side is not a product that is really geared to the recreational side, right? So the only danger that we see from our risk analysis is the illicit side needing product to sell, right? And I'm not even sure if the strain that is developed for medical purposes is actually suitable for recreational purposes. That side may not like it. But the point is, our focus is on separating those two sides. The difficulty is that people already have a concept. There's a stigma from the illicit side, right? Which may create some barriers on the regulatory side, right? Because the regulated people have to deal with that stigma until people become educated to the fact that that side is a pharmaceutical side. Right? It's just correct. Or Abbott or anybody developing aspirin or any sort of painkiller or pain management system. It's the same thing. It's just that because of the uses that can be diverted for, it has to be protected. It has to be protected from that. And of course, the illicit market, its monetary inflows make the product a near cash product, cash on near cash. So the practitioner is going to be a prime target. He's going to have both cash and near cash, right? Although he's going to have cash most of the time and near cash around harvesting periods. I don't think he has to worry too much about it before it gets to the stage where it can be cured and transformed into a usable product. But certainly those last 2 months or so, or last month and a half, you're at risk of your product being actually stolen as well.
True, that's very true. And it goes to show how important security is, because personally, it is something that I probably would have put on the back burner, or something you don't really see discussed. It's usually like any finer details, and it's only when persons actually begin, they will take into consideration, oh shucks, I have to study security. I have to do fencing, and not just fencing, as you said, but even the military grade security that you all are offering. And it goes to show how important it is in terms of incorporating all of these things and having a full understanding of what you would need to actually enter and secure yourself within the industry.
And like I said, it's all risk driven, because we basically go from a risk foundation. And the risk will be different in various countries. What the risks are in Jamaica will be different from what the risks are in Barbados, will be different from what the risks are in St. Vincent, Antigua, Barbuda. So, I mean, our risk basically is diversion, both aggressive diversion and internal theft. But you are correct. A lot of people, I've spoken to people say, "Oh, I get a couple of dogs, and my manager's got firearms," and that's, that just shows the level of nonchalant, the nonchalant approach people take to the serious nature of security for this industry. I believe the BMCLA has plugged that hole by stating that, for instance, transport. Unless you have a transport license, you can as a practitioner put the product in the back of your car and carry it to the port for exportation. You have to hire someone with a transport license who would obviously satisfy certain rules and regulations for transporting the product. The same thing with security. You just can't go and say, well, your storefront manager is going to be the security. You have to have a registered security company doing security for you and conforming to the security plan that you have to submit in order to get your license. Right? I remember the MCLA will be doing ongoing inspections. So if you fall short, you are given a certain amount of time to correct that gap. If you don't correct that gap, you stand in danger of your license being revoked, suspended or revoked. So I mean, as a country, we can't afford to get on any kind of blacklist for money laundering, for irregularities in the control of a medical cannabis industry, and providing product to the criminal element, this kind of thing. So that's the reason for the BMCLA. That's the reason for all the rules and regulations. So they have to be followed, and the BMCLA will enforce them. So that means that there is a guaranteed market for professionals in that area who come up to the block and decide to provide the type of services that are required for this industry really being safe. And remember, our threat matrix is changing constantly as the pressures of unemployment as a result of COVID and various things increase. People are going to get more desperate. You're seeing an increased level of we within the past 3 months. I think we had 2 bank robberies. Those are things that used to happen once, as we say, in a blue moon before. But when you gotta have certain things done and get certain things, you get more desperate measures coming into play.
Correct.
So I think once the industry, I think players in this market, especially the overseas, well, I don't really have to deal with the overseas players. The overseas players are coming here expecting a certain level of security, a certain standard of security. One of the clients I spoke to, their head office, their security team is ex-SEAL team members. I said, well, you're not going to get ex-SEAL team members in Barbados, but you will get highly qualified security officers that are armed and do have military experience. So, the threat level in these states is, of course, significantly higher than the threat level here. So the need for that level of expertise in the US is justified. And they pay prime dollar for these guys, right? Because they realize, that any kind of hit to a shipment is $500,000 and up. You have to realize that let's say a tier 1 person who's an acre or under, it's 3,000 plants, right? At maturity, you're looking at $500,000 in the ground, right?
Correct. Yeah. $1 million crop.
The average growing price now is about $500 a gram, right? For the finished product, somewhere in that area, plus or minus whatever percent. But you're dealing with a high value product, right? And I mean, even in terms of our countermeasures, we have a serious monkey problem in Barbados. 2 or 3 monkeys run through your field. You could lose $12,000 and up in 2 minutes. Easily. If they hit the plants at the wrong time, where they're damaged, where the plants are in training and stuff, and they damage those plants, and the plant becomes unrecoverable, you've lost a lot of money. Each plant is $3,000 or $4,000, right?
Correct.
So, even in terms of defensing, we are looking at measures and getting legal guidance on certain measures that we can use on our fencing, which would immediately address the monkey problem.
Okay, nice. Well, this is a whole wealth of information, things that I didn't even consider, and I'm sure that a lot of persons have not considered as well. So as we just come in, I really want to understand like the process you all had to go through in terms of obtaining these licenses. I know persons looking in usually think that it's very expensive. It's a very timely procedure to obtain these licenses. How was that experience for you all, or if you all are still within it, what is the type of assistance that the BMCLA is providing for your company?
No, the BMCLA is a regulatory body, and this is a private sector firm. So there's no, they're two separate things. We provide support as a private sector organization to clients, and they provide command and control, right? We operate within their guidelines. You know, they set the rules. We make sure that the client is following those rules so that when the application is submitted, it doesn't have to get bounced around to get a lot of changes done in it. It's submitted, it's right the first time, they get the license. Now, in terms of, so the compliance issue is one side of it. You know, you submit the correct documentation, the correct application package, and you're good to go. The second side is the licensing fees. They are again set by the BMCLA, and you know you get a lot of talk about oh, it's very prohibitive. It's not for the small man, this kind of thing. But you have to look at it. You have to look at it that this license, and this Barbados is one of the few places, if not the only place, that licenses like this. Most places license every year. Barbados licenses you for 5 years. So when you buy a license,
that's a big plus.
That's a big plus. And another big plus, you got to pay 50% on the application, but then you have 2 years in which to pay the balance. Right? So let's say you apply for, let's say, a transport license. That's a license that we can tell you we apply for. You apply for a transport license, that's about $99,000 just in the licensing fee, plus the application fee, which is non-refundable, which is less. I can't remember, $1,000 or something like that. So let's say you're spending $100,000 in your transport licensing fee. All right? You got to pay $50,000 on application. You got 2 years to pay the other $50,000, right? The revenue regime of this industry is such that your return on investment should be made within that 2 years. Or correct. By the end of that 2 years, you should have broken even. Right? You've got 3 years then to get your return on investment for the initial output, your return on investment, and retained earnings. That is a very, very achievable goal. So what I'm saying is, it looks like a lot of money up front. When you really sit down and look at the numbers, right? And you really decide to get into this thing seriously, it is not as daunting as it looks on paper, right? It is not as daunting as it looks on paper. In the worst case scenario, your last year of that 5 years should be a full profit year for you. There's no reason why you should not make back that money easily and have money to invest in the next 5 years of operations. Right?
Correct.
So that is the way how you have to really look at it. So the compliance side and the submission side, we will deal with on a client to consultant basis. The actual fee side, you deal with the licensing authority, and as I said, those are very favorable terms. And you know, people, some of my clients look and say there are anomalies in this fee structure and stuff like that, but they're not anomalies. You know, people see that a tier 1 license is the entry license. That's for you to get involved in the industry at a small level. But then you have a tier 2 and a tier 3, and people see the tier 3 license as less than the tier 2 license, you know? And they go, how come a tier 2, which is less acreage, is more money than the tier 3, which is more acreage? But there's logic to the madness, you see? And people don't realize that you're paying per acre, right? So if you are paying the licensing fee for tier 2 per acre, and you got 6 or 7 acres, you know, you're paying that fee. And they want to encourage you to go more. So if you know you're going to do like 20 acres or so, you buy a tier 3 license, right? You know you eventually want to do 20 acres, you buy a tier 3 license, right?
Correct.
you may only cultivate at tier 2 level or at tier 2 acreage, but you have a tier 3 license, which gives you scope for growth, right? You're only paying for what you use. You have the ability to go up to 20 acres or whatever. I'm just using numbers here now. I don't have the actual figures in front of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the scope to go up to the upper limit of the tier 3, but you are operating at tier 2 operational level. You're paying for tier 2 but you have the ability to expand. Where if you're at tier 2, you cap yourself. If you're at tier 2, you cap yourself, and then when you get to the stage where you want to expand to tier 3, you go up and buy a tier 3 license, which is more expensive. So I mean, it's things like this that the BMCLA will explain to you. You know, probably not in a forum, but if you call in one-on-one, they will explain. They will explain things. It's been very carefully worked out, and anything that seems weird is not. When you look at it, it is very rational, and it's been very well planned. And I advise anyone who may have difficulties just to call them and let one of the agents there explain your confusion or your concern, you know, or resolve your concern, because there's an explanation for everything there that some people have said look illogical or irrational or looks like an error. There's no errors. Everything's spot on.
Okay, I'm for sure even more informed and knowledgeable, not just about the industry in Barbados, but even things that persons outside need to consider in terms of security, administrative, organizing licenses. Sometimes we overlook a lot of these things, and hearing it from somebody who has been in the process and even going through and carrying out other persons through the process is comforting. So I think a lot of persons should feel a little bit more comfortable understanding the procedure in place in terms of obtaining licenses and just being aware of the analysis that you have to do in terms of security. So as we just closing
I mean, like the licensing thing is, it would be first your business case. As a surveyor, well, obviously you have to put in your business case, your financial case. You have to have your incorporation. You would apply for your licensing and all that kind of stuff. And you know, the BMCLA has basically said they would try to get everything sorted out within a 4-month period. Now that is a period that may be extended if they have to do due diligence checks on international individuals. That takes longer, obviously, right? So if you are, when I say international, I mean like extra regional, outside of CARICOM. It'll take longer. Anything locally or within CARICOM is it should be a fairly it should fall within the estimated time frame that they've already given. So you know, you initially mentioned it's a long-winded, complicated process. It's not. It's just a meticulous and careful process. That's all it is.
and once you follow the guidelines, you should be
All the
in
guidelines.
good hands.
Yeah.
Great. Well, just in closing, I like to get some just personal development questions from the guests, just for persons to get to know and understand them a bit better. So one of the usual questions we ask is if there's any particular books that you usually go to that has assisted you in some form or fashion throughout your years that persons could get same knowledge or wisdom from.
That is a loaded question, because you see, you know, you're dealing with different skill sets here. As a
No, generally, it doesn't have to be specific to the cannabis industry, but just in your own personal life, is there any books that you that's a go-to book for you?
I don't do a lot of recreational reading. You will find that most of my reading is technical or manual tech related. And most of my reading is related to what I'm involved with. So I would have done quite a bit of read quite a few books on information technology when I was in that field. You would have done the ASIS courses for the International Security Organization courses for security, for protection of physical assets. You know, you would have done various courses and workshops for for media production and video marketing. Um, but in terms of recreational reading, that is just that for me. It's recreational reading. I don't do much of that anymore. But I was a Tom Clancy reader. I'm kind of into technology and that kind of thing. So Tom Clancy's books are always very cutting edge technology in terms of the military activities and stuff. So that's the kind of thing I would like. And I did read a couple of enjoyable books, which there's a book written by the late Tommy Simpson called "Cycling Is My Life," and there's another book that was given to me, which I find very very that is one that might be of interest. It's called The Human Machine. It's a very old book. I can't remember who it's by, but it's a very motivational book because as a business person, you're gonna go through some real serious challenges. You're gonna find sometimes where you're working 24/7, and the hardest working man is a man who works for himself, right? Because
Correct.
you
You have to do everything.
have to do everything. I know this working from home is you actually have to set up time to say, listen, I'm gonna cut off here, because you will find you will end up working long periods of time. So you sometimes get very depressed. Depressed is too strong a word. I don't really get depressed. I might get but it depends on your mentality and your emotional state. But there's some motivational books. Human Machine was one motivational book that I read. I also read The Art of War, which is a strategic book on military. But I find I can take principles from one area and I put them to another area. So I found it a very interesting book in the way how logical thinking was developed in The Art of War. Those are two books that come to mind, or three books that come to mind, which I find were motivational, which I find encourage me through certain things. On a other developmental note, there are books like various management books that will give you a lot of insight. But to be quite honest, the world has changed. There is so much online now. I mean, like, if you want to do something that you don't have a clue about, you can most likely get a tutorial on it on YouTube.
True.
So
YouTube University.
anytime. I don't mean there are a lot of quacks out there though who don't get business, the conspiracy. But there's some good information on specific topics. If you are interested in a specific topic, for instance, if you want to come up to speed on cannabis cultivation, there are excellent videos on cannabis cultivation and various regimes on YouTube. How to grow this and how to grow that, this kind of thing. We ourselves put out a newsletter every month called Mechanics, in which we try to put down various articles that we source from our various, because we have ongoing research and ongoing development. So you will find that we will extract some of the things that we found interesting in a particular edition month and put it in that month's edition, and try to put some general information. And our Facebook page is always full. I mean, I think our Facebook page probably gets posted to every day, maybe several times a day, and there's always information going out. Most of it is marketing stuff, but there's a lot of also information in terms of cybersecurity, which we also deal with, because your security systems have to be all the security systems are managed over the internet, so you got to be clear from hacking. Your environmental systems are you can intrude on them. So your infrastructure for cybersecurity has to be also strong. So I mean, there's so much in this. It's such an exciting industry, and it's so rewarding to be able to contribute in whatever capacity to the growth of the industry locally and by extension regionally. Because that's our focus, local and regional. I don't even think we're looking to go as far as Jamaica, because they would have an established just community there already. So, but maybe some of these smaller countries, that are either a little bit ahead of us or no starting out. We should be able to provide some guidance to in terms of some of the pitfalls they look out for. No, in terms of registration in particular jurisdictions, I'll be quite clear. We can only assist you with registration compliance in our jurisdiction because we are familiar with the MCLA rules and regulations. We are familiar with our acts. We're not familiar with the acts that exist in other countries. So we would. I mean, obviously, we could spend the time and learn them and advise you,
but at this time you
right.
will specialize with Barbados in terms of compliance and
in terms of compliance, Barbados.
interesting. Okay, great. So Charles, as we close down, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with? Any advice or any services where they could contact you or reach you all?
Well, we'll put a link in the chat there. You can go on the Facebook page and keep up to date. Follow that page. You'll get information on it fairly regularly. You can email any questions to ossi.barbados@outlook.com. We'll be happy to respond to any questions. But most importantly, I want people to be aware of this MVP, of this multi-vector platform, because without your input, it's not going to work. We need the source people and the response people. We can work on the response side because, the investors usually from overseas usually contact us. And we have them there, sort of like on a mailing list. But it's to get to know the persons in the region, the locally in Barbados and in other countries, that we could provide that bonding service, that brokerage service with, because it doesn't work without the database. So we just want people to be aware of that and to reach out to us and send their information. Of course, when you go on even our Facebook page, you'll see our privacy statement. And our information is not shared with any organization, not even the BMCLA is not shared. It is strictly for the servicing of our client platform. End of story. So your detail and the details you're going to give are basically contact details, email, the service that you want, whether you're a supplier, whether you're a practitioner looking for a partner, that sort of basic information, which is not any sort of personal exposure, but in any event, very much needed to build the meshing resources that we require for this platform to work properly.
Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for actually joining and being a part of this discussion, Charles. As I said, it's a wealth of information that persons should incorporate into their life, whether they are ambitious into the cannabis industry or on just on general level in terms of understanding the compliances, understanding the rules, the regulations that you have to navigate within this service and within this industry. Yeah. So thanks for having us, and thank you for joining us.